Greetings everyone. Now this is an improvised rant, so I don't have any script. I'm kinda sorry if things are a bit wacky, but I need to get this off my chest. I've just found out that the local newspapers are writing on DragonAge 4 and the situation there and completely getting everything wrong, just chilling for the woke crowd. And I didn't want to say anything really, but now I'm just done with this. Like, I'm a big fan of the Dragon Age franchise, in special the first game. I'm also one of the few people who really like the DLC, like the expansion that came out. I was really digging that. That said, the second game I still liked it. Most people didn't. Yeah, sure. I enjoyed it. The third game was a bit dragged out, but I enjoyed it overall. Dragon Age 4, okay, let me put it this way. A lot of YouTubers like Endymion and similar have already pointed out the problems very well, and I think they covered most of the issues already. But the news article had made some specific statements that I want to address. The first thing is that they said that Dragon Age is a fantasy game and fantasy worlds can be whatever. So why not have top surgery scars in there? Why not have pronouns in there? It's a fantasy world, you can do whatever you like. And in principle, I have to agree, if you are creating a new fantasy world, the setting, everything, the lore is completely made up by you in a new franchise, then yes, doesn't matter what you do. You can have the laws of physics and social stuff and whatever you like as you please, because it's a fantasy world that you are creating right now. If you want gravity to be the other way around and have fun with exploring that idea, you do you. The problem is, once you have established a setting, once you have established lore, you are bound by that. You can't change it just midway through as you like. Once you establish the rules of your universe, you have to stick to those rules. Otherwise, your universe is completely unbelievable. Any immersion is absolutely broken, and no one will be invested in anything you do anymore because nothing counts. Imagine, say, Star Wars suddenly introducing, I don't know, sword fights with normal swords that are much better than laser swords, and the magic is suddenly gone. There's no more force at all. And I'm not saying that you can't have a planet where this is. I'm speaking the entire galaxy. Like, there's no more Jedi, no more Sith, no more anything, just because I like the idea. And then everyone is riding dinosaurs in space because nothing counts. That wouldn't be interesting, would it? Or have Game of Thrones with machine guns and spaceships and some purple aliens from the Warhammer 40k universe landing on Westeros. It would ruin the immersion, wouldn't it? Imagine Harry Potter, where magic now suddenly requires ingredients like in Dungeons and Dragons, where you can't just say a spell and it works, where you have to do some super complicated setup. It wouldn't work with Harry Potter, would it? Or how about giving Voldemort an army of Navy SEALs, and just kinda is off, isn't it? If you imagine, I don't know, the Conan universe, and you have now suddenly space marines invading, that would kinda ruin everything, wouldn't it? That's the situation with Dragon Age 4. Yeah, sure. When they created Dragon Age as a franchise, they had everything open. For once the first game got out, there was established lore, there was established rules, and you have to stick by them. And that's the problem I have with Dragon Age 4, because they don't do that. They do not stick to established lore. They do not stick to the very world they created. They don't stick to the setting that they created. They just change it midway through willy-nilly because, oh, we want to pander to this group now. You can't do that. And I give you the examples that I think no one else yet brought up. First thing, the top surgery scars. Sure, people are losing their mind, and in principle, this is not a problem in a fantasy universe. If you want to have a fantasy universe where people have this operation, sure, go for it. Cyberpunk, as example, like Cyberpunk 2077, I wouldn't have a problem with that. People make all kinds of crazy modifications to their bodies. Why not that? Sure. If it's set in a futuristic, if they do that in Mass Effect, no problem. Like, sure, it fits the universe. If you want to do that, okay, sure. If you want to have your own pronouns in Cyberpunk or in Mass Effect, yeah, okay, run with it. It's the future. Why not? In DragonAge, we have a few problems there. Now, in principle, choosing your own pronoun thing is not something I have something against in principle in the DragonAge universe. We know that the Magisters of the Winter, the Mage Lords that rule everything, are quite the eccentric kind of people that do whatever they want, and they make everyone else accept whatever shenanigans these mage lords come up with because they are super powerful. So if one of those said, I'm non-binary or something, I'd say like, yeah, okay, fine. What, it's not too much out there. It's still a modern day thing that's clearly politically motivated that I don't want to see in games. But if a Magister in the Winter did it, I'd say like, yeah, okay, he's just very eccentric, very quirky, likely a bit crazy up there. Okay, and he has the power to make other people accept his pronouns, and they will address him or her or they or them or whatever by whatever they choose. If they say call me God, then people will, because otherwise they die basically. So sure, but a Kunari, why of all the companions that you could have made this non-binary person, why of all of them the Kunari? Because that's the one race where it makes no sense. Most people in DragonAge, as in the populations, have gender stereotypes and they have gender roles. The dwarves do, the humans do, the elves do. The elves maybe less than the others, but Kunari are the one group that don't think like that. Kunari don't have names, they don't have pronouns, they don't have male and female as a distinction, as an identity. They don't have that. In the Kunari society, you are your job. You are farmer, smith, merchant. That is your name, that is your pronoun that others will refer to you as, and that's your identity. Arishok is the leader. Arishok can be male, Arishok can be female. Arishok could be huge, Arishok could be small, Arishok could be anything, because Arishok just is the job description. It's like saying the boss. The boss said that the boss wants you to forge a new sword for the boss. That's name, pronoun, that's everything in there. If Arishok wants that Arishok is named Arishok, then everyone will address Arishok as Arishok, because Arishok is the fucking name. It's the title. And Arishok also can't just say, I'm not Arishok anymore, I want to be addressed as whatever. Because people wouldn't get what this is. He is still Arishok. And the moment he would change his name, then Arishok wouldn't be the leader anymore, because that is intrinsically the purpose of this position. It's like saying, I don't want to be president of the United States anymore, please address me as president of, as king of Minnesota. People would have a problem with that. The system doesn't function like that. You can't change that because you have something in your head. It's how this society works. In this society, non-binary isn't a thing, because there is no binary gender identity to begin with. You aren't male or female. You are smith or merchant or farmer or leader or priest and so on and so forth. This very system isn't binary to begin with. You have so many options in this system as it is already. There is no need to change that. Second thing I wanted to address was the top surgery scars. Why they make no sense in DragonAge. DragonAge has very powerful, very good healing magic. So if someone loses their breasts to whatever circumstance, in special if it's planned, you could heal that without scars. There wouldn't be any scars visible because you could heal that perfectly. There is no scarring that happens. Unless you do it in an unplanned manner or are completely out of money and do it yourself with a knife and then stitch it up like medieval people would have had to do. But if you do that, that is massive bleeding. You wouldn't just have these small tiny operation scars that we are able to produce with very modern medicine, modern medication, modern tools, super sterile environments where we operate in, and very sterile tools that we operate with, and all the many technological marvels that need electricity to operate, which by the way doesn't exist in DragonAge, like the small cauterization of blood vessels, that the scars can be this small. In DragonAge, the only thing you could realistically do after that is use a glowing red hot big AF iron, press it on the wound and hope that you stop the bleeding with the heat, with the cauterization. That wouldn't be these small little scars. Those would be huge scars that would be all over your chest. Your entire chest would be burned, visibly burned. That's the scars you'd have from that. And honestly, your chances of surviving such an operation are like zero. Not exactly. If you're super tough, I guess a Kunari could survive it, but most people would absolutely die. If they don't die from the blood loss, if they don't die from the cauterization process, they would most likely die from the really bad infection you'd get afterward. And there's no antibiotics or something, so you are pretty much dead at this point. And that's just the top operation. Downstairs is that's not possible. That's straight not possible without modern medicine. That wouldn't be able to be done, and you wouldn't survive, is what I'm saying. The other thing is, this world has other options. This world has people that are capable of transforming into other creatures. We have mages, elf or human, that can transform into wolves, giant spiders, even dragons. They can change their mass, their size, their species. They can suddenly get physical features that are not normal in the human form, like having wings and breathing fire. They can do that. There's alchemical potions that can do that. So if you really want to transition, you'd go to a mage and ask them to change you magically. Because guess what? This is not only a 100% survival rate, it's also painless, at least from what I gather. It's much better than anything we could do with modern medicine. If you change your gender, your sex, whatever, with magic, this is perfect. No one would ever be able to tell that you once have been something different. They wouldn't know how. You'd be a perfect transition. There is no way of telling, is what I'm trying to get at. So if you are in this universe where it already makes very little sense to even want to change your sex, there is options that are so much better than what we have available. If you really want to transition, you can do it perfectly. No scars, no anything. I just don't get it. And also the very idea of transitioning is that you really become the other gender. And don't become non-binary, you get from he, him to she, her. And the very idea of non-binary is kinda hostile to the idea of transitioning, because now you are not male or female, you're now a non-binary person. No, that's not what these people try to do. And yeah, I know a lot of trans people. They want to be the other sex. And the best you can do is accommodate that. They don't want a different pronoun. That's for the people that, well, are kind of in between, I guess. I don't know. But the other thing is that these are for stereotypes. Like, I've seen people that said, I don't like soccer, so I can't be a man. What? Yeah, I know there's certain stereotypes associated with certain genders. I get that. But being a man is not defined by all kinds of psychological hobbies and whatnot. It's defined by what's in between your legs. Same for women. A man can be a ripped lumberjack with a beard, but he can also be a very feminine guy who is dancing in ballet or something. Still a man. Same for women. Women can be these beautiful, graceful Veronica's Secret models, and they can be the opposite of that, and they're still women. It's not defined that way, but whatever. I'm ranting too much on this point. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is Game of Thrones. And yeah, I know people have kind of found a closure with it. I mean, House of Dragon is still very popular. My problem with it is that I think you could still rescue the main franchise, even after what Benioff and Weiss have done in the last season. I really think it's savable. You can salvage it. How? Everything that happened in season 8 happened. Let's not speak about the absolutely silly things that happened, the plot armor, the insanely stupid battlefield tactics. All of that happened. Even the Arya moment. It happened. No problem. No problem. Here's how I'd salvage that problem and continue the story. What if... Have you ever played chess? Do you know what a pawn is for? Pawns are there to be sacrificed to lure the enemy, your opponent, to do something stupid, to create an opening so that you can do much worse to them. You sacrifice a pawn, you get a queen. That's pretty much the best outcome. Unless your opponent is really stupid, then you might be able to sacrifice a pawn and end the game because they exposed the king. That's how this chess thing works. Now, what if the others sent a small military group? Because I imagine the others are an entire race of people, and in the show there were 5 of them that we saw. That's a squad. That's a small squad of people. That's a small military unit. That's not the entire people of the others. I imagine there is a whole cities full of them somewhere up there, made of ice in a palace. I don't know. I'd imagine there would be much more than these guys. And I'd imagine that the actual ruler of the others said, you know what? The South is pretty well organized right now. They are prepared for us. They know we're coming. How about they are trying to unite? How about we are sending a pawn down there that's willing to die for the cause and just be a distraction? What if the others made someone go down south, like it happened in the show, and do everything that happened in the show, and that was just to give a false sense of safety, just to make the mankind believe that the winter is over and that was it. I mean, it doesn't fit at all what they said in the first season about what a winter looks like, but the people think that's stories, and it has been so long that they don't really remember or care. So they think that was that, and they go back to the usual business. Now, this is the perfect opportunity for the others, because now there is no more Night Watch, because they kinda disbanded, they kinda lost their purpose if there's no more invasion coming. The wall is already broken, so you don't have to make big noise and fuss to break another segment of it down. You can just use the opening that's already there, that's not guarded either. The wildlings that could have seen you coming far away and warned the south are not there anymore because they went south. And you could go straight into the Seven Kingdoms and invade the north with a full-blown army. What if there's not just 5? I mean, we have seen what 5 of these guys have as capabilities, as in getting dead bodies to work for them. Imagine 50 of them, 500 of them, 5,000 of them, and the armies those guys could create. What if they can freeze themselves at will and commit suicide. What if they didn't explode because the main guy, the main evil guy, was killed, the Night King? What if they, the moment the Night King was killed and they saw that, they put some Valyrian steel or whatever into themselves to commit suicide, to make it look like that's it. And all the minions, of course, if the necromancer dies, the minions die too. So I guess that's one way to explain how they all just died in the same time, and that was just a distraction. And now the Seven Kingdoms are in shambles. Like, what was left of the army was kinda killed in King's Landing. The Golden Legion, or what the name was pretty much just annihilated by the dragons and stuff. So the Seven Kingdoms are right now not in fighting shape. Almost all the military forces have been absolutely exhausted and slayed by killing each other. There is no real unity because Iron Fleet was kinda sunk for the most part. No one really knows who is now really in charge, because come on, they won't accept someone like that. There will be infighting in the various smaller houses that got just forgotten and put aside. But what if they say, hey, you guys don't have a claim, we do, and the entire shit starts again. So, and that's not just for the entire Seven Kingdoms. Do you really think the North just accepts Sansa sitting there? She's not quite the material to lead, to put it mildly. The one that had the North united was Robb, and he died seasons ago. And Jon is still a bastard. Like, technically speaking, no, but practically speaking, yes. So they won't just accept that. Look at real medieval history. There's three ways you could become a king. Either you're elected by a group of lords, which happened a lot in the Holy Roman Empire. You could be a conqueror and just carve out your own kingdom and make yourself king, which happened a lot. Or you are the direct descendant of the former king. If you are not directly descendant, you have a problem. Even if you are directly descended, history shows us more often than not that if you weren't prepared to be king, like you got the proper education and familiar with everything, your claim is not really worth anything. Because people will say, dude, you haven't even lived in this country for your entire life, you're not gonna rule us. That's that. Because ultimately the king is dependent on the goodwill of the lords. If the lords say that's not our king, then he's not the king. That's as easy as that. So back to that. Dorne doesn't really have a leader right now. There is a lot of infighting to be expected. The Vale, same thing. North, same thing. King's Landing, same thing. The Iron Isles, I don't think they accept their new leader either, so there is infighting to expect. So the Seven Kingdoms are out of military resources pretty much and infighting. Great for an invasion. What about Essos? Well, Essos, Daenerys, as far as I remember, managed to conquer pretty much the entire part of, like the entirety of known Essos with her Dothraki. So she was the one person holding it all together. She didn't establish a real line of authority there. So now that she's gone, what's gonna happen? There is a lot of people that now have no more master, no one above them. There will be a lot of infighting to fill the void. There will be a lot of infighting to become the heir to Daenerys' empire, or they will more likely just squabble about city-states and stuff like that. That's more likely to happen. And when that happens, they are also pretty much done. I mean, the Dothraki are pretty much wiped out now, so one of the major problems Essos had, gone. But it still caused a lot of damage, and some of the best elite forces of Essos are gone, and what's left will likely be killed in the infighting that ensues. The slavers now don't have anyone preventing them from doing slavery again. So there will be a lot of slavery going on, and there will be a lot of pissed off, formerly super powerful people now trying to get back that into power. And the slaves will of course try to resist. So there's lots of infighting going on there. This is pretty much the best outcome the others could have hoped for, because now there is little to no resistance. If they gather together and march in as one huge army, no one will be able to stop them, and Game of Thrones would end with what I think where it should have ended: all of mankind wiped out, eternal kind of ice age conditions, and the others ruling everything, the end. Because in the first season, in the first book, in the first few lines even, they say that this is a danger for all of humanity, and if mankind is unable to stick together and band together to resist this as one, they will lose. So they obviously weren't able to unite, they obviously aren't a strong front, so they should lose. That's consequence. And I know George doesn't really like to have predictable outcome, but you can't just change on a dime how the story goes because people expect it to happen. It's like going to a restaurant, to an Italian restaurant, ordering spaghetti bolognese, and then getting served a huge plate full of cow dung, sprinkled with some maggots. To drink you get literal piss, and it's garnished with rotten eggs, and I don't know. That's definitely surprising. It's a subversion of expectations. My expectations would be very, very. I would be speechless. And is this a good thing? Let's try it out. Those people that think that subverting expectations is a good thing, have them go to a restaurant and serve them something completely different from what they ordered, and see if they like that. I don't think they do, because subverting expectations, that's not what you are supposed to do. If I went to work nude, that would subvert expectations, and I'd be arrested and put into jail. That same happens likely to a restaurant that serves such unhygienic meal. And again, don't just change how the story goes because people figure it out. I'm a game master for various RPGs for 30 years now. I've played with guys that figured out the entirety of the adventure after like 20 minutes of play. It happens. Some people are really good at figuring stuff out, and if you want to change things around just so that no one can figure it out, someone will still be able to figure it out. I'm just saying it. People are very creative, so yeah, you can't surprise everyone. If you know a group of people, you can, and you know them, you can surprise them because you know they wouldn't get to this conclusion or that conclusion. If it's the entire world, somebody will have already have drawn that conclusion. So stop subverting expectations, I guess. So this has been going on for long enough. It was a small rant. Thanks for watching, and I just had to get this off my chest. Thank you.